over a 5-year period, I think Bitcoin's going to 10x over the next 5 years. I think it'll be $1 million. I put in my talk I gave at Bitcoin Mina, I gave $1 million 2030, 14 million by 2040, and I think it was 43 million by 2050.
He draws a striking parallel between gold and Bitcoin, two assets surging in value and sending a clear, urgent message. Global trust in the current financial system is eroding fast. Major nations, especially those holding massive foreign reserves like China, are moving away from U.S. treasuries. Instead, they're turning toward neutral, decentralized stores of value. If this insight resonates with you, don't just scroll past. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on crypto, digital assets, and the shifting financial landscape. Want to dive deeper? Check out our other videos and drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. Every like, comment, and share fuels the algorithm and helps us bring you more high-impact content. Thanks for watching, and let's go back to the interview.
I think it certainly is, and what it is, it goes back to where we started, which is these revolutions. And so, as the world's breaking apart, as the monetary system is breaking apart, as Russia's getting their bank account seized, the world's looking for other options. And so, you have that on top of what's happening in the United States, making the U.S. Treasury less
desirable.
Less desirable is a good way to put it. So it's pushing gold.
Yeah.
And so everyone is seeing sort of the writing on the wall. The monetary system is changing, and we should probably be buying gold. We want to put less into U.S. treasuries. And so where are you going to put it, right? When you're a nation with billions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars, where do you put that? And so gold is certainly catching a bid. I think finally, like it took off in 2020 when, whatever, the Fed printed about $11 trillion. Gold took off, and then it took off for about a year, and then it just stalled out and kind of crashed back down, did nothing. And so now it's finally taking off. But I think it really represents the end of this inside money back to the equities and the treasuries, and going back to more of like this decentralized form of money and no counterparty risk. So gold is that money, decentralized, no counterparty risk. And then, of course, Bitcoin is that decentralized counterparty risk. So I think gold, I made a tweet thread yesterday, I think, or day before, and I talked about how gold and Bitcoin both going up are screaming something. So the U.S. dollar, those are going up, and what is it screaming? And it's basically screaming that the world sees this system changing. And two, for Trump and Bessent, they've been pretty open about that. They want less money coming back into the U.S. and even less money into the stock indexes, unfortunately, for some people. But it's pushing them into this decentralized money. And
it's funny because they want less money going into, like, they've made it quite clear that they don't want like Chinese money going into the NASDAQ, right?
Yeah.
But they definitely want it going into treasuries, and that's not really happening either.
Luke Grumman would argue that they don't want it going into treasuries either. Right?
Okay. Yeah. What's the argument there? I don't know the argument.
Well, because they don't want the government, these other countries, to have so much money. They want, number one, take some of that money through tariffs, right? And two, put it back into the system. And so that's when they've talked about revaluing gold, pushing the price of gold up. Bessent's sort of like, no, we're not going to do that, but maybe they are.
They're going to do that, I think.
Depends on what time frame you're talking about. Typically, when you listen to people talk about financial markets, you always have to ask, like, over what time frame. One guy says bonds are bad, one guy says bonds are good, but like over what time frame, right?
Both can be true.
Well, yeah, over the different time frames, right? So I'd say over a 5-year time frame, Bitcoin's going to stomp it. Bitcoin's going to stomp it. In a short-term time frame, gold could outperform. And the outlier specifically for gold, maybe it goes from 3,000 to 5,000 over the next couple of years. That'd be a massive move. But the outlier for gold is if it gets revalued.
Yeah.
Because then we could see it go from 3,000 to like 15,000 or 20,000. So if that happened, which I give a pretty low probability, it's not my base case, there is a good case for it, Luke Grumman makes. And you basically have China trying to bring back this gold standard. Now, they've been, I made a video calling it China's second fatal mistake. The whole world shifted to a silver standard, or from a silver to a gold standard, bimetal standard to a gold standard in the late 1800s. China had so much silver. They're like, we're not going to go to a gold standard. We're going to stay on silver. And because of that, they lost their position in the world. Their purchasing power dropped by 30%. They eventually capitulated and moved over. And now what they've done is for the last 100 years try to get back, and they've been acquiring gold. They've been the largest importer of gold. They allow all these nations to go mine gold in China, but if you mine it in China, you have to sell it back to China. And there's no real clear numbers of how much gold they own. Some people say they may have as much as 30,000 tons versus the US, like about 8, right?
Wow.
But as they've been trying to get back to gold, now the world's switching. The US is now, we'll go to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go to Bitcoin. They want to stay on gold. But back to the point is, they've been pushing gold. There's been a lot of rumors for years about them trying to launch a gold-backed currency, maybe gold-backed CBDC. They're allowing gold to be converted on their Shanghai exchange. And so if they were to create a gold-backed currency, then that would really strengthen the demand for their currency, for their markets, and the U.S. could suffer from that. So would the U.S. want to move first? And that's the game theory. And so that's sort of Luke Grauman's case, I believe. And the U.S. might want to preempt that move. And so if that happened, then you could see, like I said, gold jump 10,000, 15,000 bucks an ounce, and it would move faster than Bitcoin. But over a 5-year period, I think Bitcoin's going to 10x over the next 5 years. I think it'll be $1 million. I put at my talk I gave at Bitcoin Mina, I gave $1 million 2030, 14 million by 2040, and I think it was 43 million by 2050. And then I broke down the math. I know those are sensational numbers.
Moss dives into the political dimension of this financial shift, zeroing in on how leadership will shape the transition. He reflects on Trump's first term and outlines what could unfold if Trump regains power, particularly when it comes to the Federal Reserve. According to Moss, it's highly likely that Trump would move to oust Jerome Powell, not necessarily through formal legal channels, but via calculated political pressure and behind-the-scenes influence. While the legality of such a move remains uncertain, Moss argues that it would reflect a deeper, ongoing transformation in how economic power is wielded in the U.S. Let's go back to the video.
I would think that they probably gave a lot of it back up until severing the tie in 1971, and potentially manipulating the markets to keep the price of gold suppressed. Maybe they went through a bunch.
Yeah.
So that would be my base case. But there is a case for maybe even having more gold there, especially if they start to see the end of this dollar dominance. They start to see the writing on the wall. Maybe there's a case for adding some gold. And either one of those, if the public found out about it, would be equally as bad. Maybe would even be worse if we had more gold than less. Because then it's like, shoot, if the government doesn't even believe in the dollar.
Oh, interesting. So that's like the same idea of like strategic reserves shows weakness in the dollar. It's the same thing with gold.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So play this out. Like, we're obviously in a super tumultuous time. Like, that's undeniable, I think. Do you think the next 5 years is going to be like good for gold and Bitcoin and the United States? Or do you think those two things can't happen at the same time?
The United States is a big country with a lot of people, and so it'll be good and bad. I see the greatest era of prosperity the world has ever seen right in front of us. And I don't mean like way out in front of us. I mean like over the next 5 years.
Interesting.
But going back to really the first conversation that we started with, where most people just don't want to do it. So the greatest opportunity is in front of us, but most people won't grasp that opportunity. So I think we'll see more people become millionaires and multimillionaires than ever in time, but we'll also continue to see people fall further and further behind.
So you think that wealth gap's just going to get worse?
Way worse, unfortunately. But I think the wealth gap is a little bit misunderstood, in my opinion.
Okay. I guess the reason I want you to explain that, but the reason I would care about the wealth gap, it's not that I think like everyone should be given an amount. It's more what the societal impact of the wealth gap.
Yeah. I think the wealth gap is misunderstood because it's not about how much money you make or have. It's really about your consumption. So it was just yesterday, day before, back to Elizabeth Warren, I think it was Bernie Sanders again, talking about Elon Musk and how much money he has. He doesn't have the money. The guy's broke. Like, he lives in a $50,000 house that's 1,200 square feet with plastic furniture. He owns equity in companies that is worth a lot of money. It's not cash in his bank. He's like cash poor. So it's not about income or net worth. It's about consumption. So what do I mean by that? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, whatever. Jeff Bezos has a flat screen TV. I have a flat screen TV. The guy on welfare has a flat screen TV. Jeff Bezos has a smartphone where he can watch YouTube. The guy on welfare has a smartphone that he can watch YouTube. Like, Jeff Bezos can fly around the world. Anyone in America can fly around the world. He has access to healthcare. So does everyone else has access to healthcare. Now, he has more TVs.
And better access to healthcare.
Theoretically, yeah. He has more cars than I have. I have one car. He has a bunch. I have a couple houses, but most people have one house. Or they have a house to live in. He's got a couple houses. But like, we all have a house. We all have a flat screen TV. We all have a smartphone that we can watch YouTube and learn anything and meet anybody right here. We all have access to travel. We all have access to healthcare. Like, so it's like, rather than think, well, he's worth 50 billion and I'm only worth, 100,000. It's like, what is the standard of living? How many cars can you drive at one time? One, right? How many TVs can you watch at one time? Like one, right? So I just think we should look at it a little bit differently from that perspective, number one. But I do think that it's going to continue to blow apart. And the reason why is back to Bitcoin and AI. So Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI, said that he believes that we'll see the first single person $1 billion company. Mm-hmm. And we're already seeing several companies that are $300 to $500 million companies with less than 20 employees. I mean, even look at Tether. What does real estate need?
Money printer.
Low rates.
Yeah.
Low rates. So it's like, that's his lens. That's what he did in his first term. That's what he's doing right now. I'm not a Supreme Court or an attorney to talk about the legality of that. It doesn't seem like he's going to be able to get Powell out.
I think he will. Whether he does it by actually firing him, that may not be possible. But I think he's going to get him out one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, he could force him to resign or something like that. But I think what they're doing is they're forcing their hand. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe by getting the markets down, that sort of forces his hand. Obviously, there's a bunch of things that they can do. But I guess the question is, would it be a bad thing if Trump got more control? Things are good and bad at the same time. I personally have sort of given up on the debt. We're 36 trillion.
I agree with you on that.
38 trillion, 40 trillion, 50 trillion. So what?
Yeah.
At this point, so what?
You can probably only say so what because you have Bitcoin though.
You know what it was? It was in 2008. I was big into real estate. I built this building that we're in right now. And when the great financial crash happened, I mean, I got wiped out. I'm in Southern California real estate. It dropped 60% in 12 months. It was insane. And I remember that the Fed was going to do a bailout, and it was $700 billion. Mm-hmm.
The top
and I
bailout.
was like, no, you can't do this. You're going to ruin everything, right? But today it's like, throw a couple trillion on, so what, right? Yeah. And I think the reason why I would say that is not just because I have Bitcoin. I would guess.
Moss has come to a surprising and powerful realization. Back in 2008, he suffered heavy losses during the real estate crash. At the time, a $700 billion bailout felt unthinkable. But today, multi-trillion-dollar stimulus packages barely raise an eyebrow. What's changed isn't just the size of the numbers, it's the mindset and the preparation. Moss no longer fears the exploding debt. Why? Because he's taken action. He's positioned himself in Bitcoin, gold, and breakthrough innovations. And he's urging others to do the same before the next wave becomes too big to escape. If this message resonates with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. We've got more deep dives waiting for you. Check out the other videos on the channel to stay ahead of the curve and take control of your financial future. Thanks for watching, keep learning, keep stacking, and we'll see you in the next one.